Welcome to VG Trader, a completely different type of YouTube channel for gamers, because we're going to tell you exactly which video games are going to make you rich in the future and which video games you should ditch in the future, or just ditch now so you don't lose money on them. That's right, in every single episode I'm going to list some of the games that are going to be worth a huge amount of money in the future, and also video games that might cost a lot now, but in a few years' time will be worth absolutely bugger all. Yes, we're going to concentrate on games for almost every single console and in almost every single genre, because different genres are actually worth different amounts. But the one thing we won't do is cover PC games, because we don't do PC, see? And the reason we don't do PC is because there's not that many that go up in value. Most of them actually go down very quickly due to the technology changing constantly. Whereas most console systems have a shelf life of between 5 and 7 years. Anyway, let's get down to business. 6 games that are going to go up in value and 1 that you need to avoid. Okay, the first game we're going to look at is Brutal Legend. Yes, it came out on the Xbox 360 and the PS3, and it was invented by a guy called Tim Schafer. If you're a gamer and you've heard of Tim Schafer before, it's because he was the guy who came up with the PS2 game Psychonauts, which is now worth quite a lot of money, but we'll talk about that in a different episode. Now, Brutal Legend, you played a character who is kind of a roadie for a rock band, who then gets transported to this evil realm and has to do battle with evil. And, it stars Jack Black, had many cameos. Lemmy was in it. Notice I said Lemmy, who is no longer with us. Ozzy Osbourne was in it. Notice I say Ozzy Osbourne, who, to be honest, no one's sure if he's still with us or not, are they? But it starred both of those, and a lot of other rock people were involved in it, and it had some absolutely great rock songs, but it wasn't very well received. Personally, I think it's a great game though, and because Tim Schafer was involved, and as I said, he did Psychonauts, it's now starting to become a bit of a collector's item. But I say starting, because at the moment you can pick it up incredibly cheaply. Now, before we go into prices, let's talk about mint games, used games and loose games, and they're the 3 areas in which games are classed. A mint game is basically a game that hasn't even been taken out of its wrapper yet. And if you're a gamer, you're going to be thinking, whoa, why would you leave a game in its wrapper? Well, the answer is value. If a game's still in its wrapper, obviously anyone who you then sell it to is going to know it's a perfect condition copy. Obviously, as collectors, the value is going to be incredibly high. Next comes used games, and used games are complete games. So it comes with the box, it comes with the instructions, and obviously it comes with the disc, but it's an open game. Now, they're classed as used whether they've been played or not. As long as the cellophane's been taken off, they are used. And thirdly, we have what's known as loose games. Now, loose games, I'm not even going to deal with on here, because to be honest, if you're buying loose games, they're never going to be worth much, because a loose game is basically just the disc. No box, no instructions. So you won't find me talking about those on this channel. Now, if you want a mint condition copy of Brutal Legend, still in the cellophane, as mentioned, in America, it's going to cost you about $13. If you want a British copy of the game, so PAL version of the game, it's going to cost you about £14 at the moment. And what you'll find as a games collector is the American versions and the British versions and the Japanese versions of games, even though they're exactly the same, they can change dramatically. And the reason for that is in different territories, different amounts of the games were released and they had a different amount of popularity. Yeah, $13 for a mint condition copy of Brutal Legend in America, £14 in Britain. Now for the used copies, and these are the ones that I recommend you go for as collectors. Now, the reason I say this is because if you're buying mint copies of things, generally they're a lot more expensive. And if you want to make money from collecting, you don't really want to spend that much when you're picking up games. If you can get a mint copy for a used price, then obviously jump on it. But I tend to go for used copies of things that are in very, very good condition. And if you want a used copy of Brutal Legend, at the moment, as of March 2016, you're going to pay about $5 for it in America. Now in Britain, you're going to love this. In Britain, at the moment, you can pick up Brutal Legend for £1. £1, you can pick it up. Now, you're going to go, where are you going to get it? I'm not going to go into where you're going to get it, because you can look online and you'll see all the normal stores, and some of them will have it for about £1, but not for very long, because as I said, it didn't sell very well, and now collectors are realising that it was actually quite a good game, so they're starting to pick it up. Now for my prediction for the future. I predict that Brutal Legend is going to become a bit of a cult classic for a lot of reasons. One, the Tim Schafer connection with Psychonauts. Two, the fact that Ozzy Osbourne was in it. Three, the fact that Jack Black played the main character in it. And four, Lemmy was in it. He's no longer with us. So there's a lot of reasons why this game is going to become incredibly collectible. Now if you can pick it up really cheap, go for it, because we believe that it's going to eventually be worth, within the next 10 years, between $30 and $40, or probably about £30 in UK money. So if you can get Brutal Legend, buy it now. I would say buy it PS3. You can buy Xbox if you want, but generally Xbox 360, but generally PS3 games are worth more because they're on Blu-ray, not on normal, disc. So that was my first game. Let's move on to the second. Trauma Center Second Opinion. If you've not heard of this game, originally it came out on the DS, but I'm not covering the DS version now, I'm going to cover the Wii version. It was a very niche game. It was released by a company called Atlas. That's the first reason it's going to become quite a collectible game, because Atlas generally don't do very big print runs of games, so their games obviously become quite collectible. It didn't sell hugely. The reason it didn't sell hugely is because it wasn't your typical fighting game or your typical, shooting, first-person shooter game or role-play game or survival game. Well, I suppose you could call it a survival game because it was a surgery game. You played the part of a surgeon and basically you had to save people by operating on them. Yeah, I know, weird. And weird is good when it comes to games collecting, because this game is niche. And niche means there's not many copies around, or if there are copies around at the moment, no one really wants them, which means, of course, collectors then really want them in a few years' time when they can't get their hands on them. So what about prices? Okay, so you can get a mint condition copy of Second Opinion for about $28 if you're in America. And if you're in Britain, at the moment you can get a brand new copy, mint condition, still in the cellophane, for about £10, which is an absolute steal if you're a collector. So what about used copies of Trauma Center Second Opinion? Well, in America you can pick one up for about $8. And once again, in Britain you can pick up a PAL version for about £1 or £1.50. Yeah, I know! £1 or £1.50. There's loads of copies of it at the moment in second-hand shops. So, sorry America, but if you're in the UK, pick a copy up now, because, what can you get for £1? You can't even buy a coffee. And this game is going to go through the roof. So, how much is a mint condition copy of Trauma Unit Second Opinion going to be worth in America in 10 years' time? I estimate it's going to be worth roughly about $50 or $60. And I know you're thinking, oh, $50 or $60, that's what it is new. Yes, but you're not picking it up for that price, are you? So you're going to make a big profit. And as for UK price, as I said, you can get it for about a tenner at the moment, and I think it's going to be worth at least sort of 50, maybe £60 in 10 years' time. So it really is one to invest in. So how about a used copy? I estimate that in 10 years' time, Trauma Unit is going to be worth about $30, obviously for the American version, and probably about £30 for the English version or the PAL version. So yeah, not a bad little investment, is it? It's better than putting your money in the bank. So, what's the third game I'm going to look at today? Well, I hate to say it, but it's another Trauma Center game. Yes, it's the sequel, New Blood. And in America, you can pick up a version of this, mint condition, for about $20, which isn't too bad at all, is it? Whereas the British version, you can pick up for a fiver, mint condition, at the moment. How good is that? That's brilliant. A used copy of it will set you back about $8 in America. And what about the British one? Well, you can pick it up for about £1.50. So once again, an absolute steal and worth investing in. Now, I believe New Blood is going to be worth quite a bit because it was one of the later games to come out for the Wii. So less people were going to buy it in the first place, weren't they? So I estimate that a new mint condition copy in America, you're talking at least maybe $60 for a mint one. And for a mint in the UK, probably about, maybe not as much, maybe 45 or 50 quid. As for the used, not quite as much. Probably about 25 or 30. Yeah. Still a good buy, isn't it? So we've talked about some games that are going to make you some money, but what games should you not invest in? In each video, I'm going to mention at least one game that's a really bad investment. Now, I'm not saying they're bad games, just games you shouldn't buy if you're sort of saving them back for the future with the plan on selling them. And the first series I want to talk about is FIFA, yeah? The football games or the soccer games, depending whether you're in, England or America. Now, FIFA is massively popular here in the UK. Not so big in America, but still popular. The problem is, because they're football games, they change every single year. And every year they bring out a new version of them. So you get FIFA 10, 12, 14, 38, 50,000. You get the idea. Every year they whack out a new FIFA game, usually about sort of September or October. They change a few bits, add in a few new features. I think this last year they added the fact that you could play as a woman, which is perhaps not the best feature in the world, is it? It's not the best selling point unless you want to play football as a woman. Which personally I don't. I know loads of people are going to go, what's wrong with women footballers, eh? I've got no problem with women footballers, or footballers really. But the point is, these games get brought out, they add one or two features, and it's almost the same game as they brought out the previous year. Which means that when they bring out the one the next year, the price of FIFA goes through the floor. And if you look on eBay or Amazon, you'll see that I'm absolutely right. You buy a FIFA game, it is literally worth nothing in a few years' time. At the moment, if you want to buy FIFA 16 in America, you can pick one up for about $34 for a mint condition copy. In Britain, you can pick up a mint brand new one for about 28 quid, which I suppose isn't really bad for a new game. And obviously, at the moment, because we're halfway through the year, people are still buying FIFA. So a used copy, about $28 or about £27. But how much will they be worth in 10 years' time? This is the sad thing. If you've got a mint condition copy of FIFA 16, in 10 years' time, you'll be lucky to get about $5 for it, or about £5, maybe less. But you've got a used copy, and I'm not exaggerating. If you don't believe me, look at some of the other FIFA games that have come out over the last 5 years. Within 5 years, these games go from sort of 50 quid, sort of $60 brand new games, down to being worth about 10p. Way less than $1. So, what I would say is, if you want to collect games, avoid FIFA at all costs. Don't say I didn't warn you. Okay, let's get back to games that are actually going to make you some money. And the next one I'd like to talk about was an Xbox 360 exclusive game, but you can still pick it up. And that game was called Too Human. Basically, it was a role-play game, sort of set in a kind of alternative Viking stroke sci-fi universe. I know, it sounds a bit odd already, doesn't it? But it wasn't a bad game, it got average reviews. And the makers of it were called Silicon Knights. And they did a deal with Epic Games, who make the Unreal games, to use the Unreal Engine as the basis for the game. The problem was the deal went a bit wrong, and basically, Silicon Knights sued Epic Games saying they hadn't supplied what they were supposed to supply, and then Epic Games countersued Silicon Knights and ended up getting over $4 million in damages, and wait for it, the game was then taken off the shelves and taken off of, the Xbox marketplace. And so you couldn't get a new copy anywhere because it was, taken off sale, which means that if you've got a copy of it, it's going to be worth a lot of money eventually. This is going to be a collector's item. Now, at the moment, you can still find new copies of it, usually sort of in shops, sort of second-hand shops where someone's bought it and not played it. You can get the American version for about $18, and you can pick up a new copy for about 20 quid for the PAL version. But what about used? At the moment, you can pick it up in America for about $7, and in the UK, you can pick it up for £1.50, which is an absolute steal. But just be warned, it's an Xbox 360 game, and there's a lot of copies around that are just scratched to shreds. So if you're looking for it, don't just buy any copy you can get. Really look hard and make sure you get a decent copy. As for my prediction for it, the sky is the limit. This one's a really hard one to predict because it's a new franchise. It was supposed to be the first in a trilogy that didn't happen, so that's going to make it rare. And it wasn't a bad game. So I estimate the American version is probably going to be worth $40 to $60 for a mint copy in the next 10 years. The English, probably about 50 quid for the PAL version. As for used, well, not as much really, but probably about $30 or $40. And for the UK version, probably about 25. Again, it doesn't sound like a vast amount of money, but if you can pick up a copy of this for, £1.50 or $7, that's still a really good profit. Okay, let's move on to the next game, and it's Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 on the PS3. Now, there's a lot of Marvel Capcom games, but what a lot of people don't know is these are really skyrocketing in value at the moment. And the reason they're skyrocketing is because after they came out, Capcom lost the license with Marvel to release the games. So they released a certain amount of games, they sold reasonably well, but then it had to, be taken off the shelves because the license ran out. And of course, anyone who's now got a copy of that game is in luck because they're going up. If you can find a mint copy, it's about $45 or £40. The reason this particular game, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 on the PS3, is worth a lot is because it had a lot of extra content that the original version of Marvel vs. Capcom 3 didn't have, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Am I making sense? Basically, the Ultimate version had extra downloadable content, which once the deal with Marvel and Capcom ran out, it wasn't available online. So if you've got the Ultimate copy, you've got a lot of extra characters that you don't get in the other copy, which means the game is obviously worth a lot of money. So, $45 for mint-ish, $40 for the UK version, $24 for a used one, or 20 quid. I keep saying quid. If you're American, you don't know what quid is. It's just, another word for pound or UK money. So about 20 quid for the PAL version. My predictions for this game, going by what's happening with Marvel vs. Capcom 2, if you want to know about that, look it up. My prediction for this is this game is going to go into the hundreds, I would say. I kissed then, didn't I? That was weird. I went like that. But this game, it's going to go mint condition copy. I reckon you could be talking $120, $130 and at least 100 quid for it. As for a used copy, you're still going to be talking about sort of, I would say $80, $90 and certainly £75 in the UK. So it really is worth trying to find a copy of this because it's going to make you some serious cash. Okay, now I've told you about some absolute bargain games that are really going through the roof, but I want to tell you about one that is already incredibly rare, and it's called Under Defeat HD Deluxe Edition, and it's on the PS3. This is a helicopter shoot-'em-up game. And you're probably already thinking, well, helicopter shoot-'em-up game on the PS3, there can't be many of them, and that's the point. There's hardly any shoot-'em-up games on the PS3. Don't believe me, look it up. And so this one is becoming rare. It's also becoming rare because it's actually an absolutely brilliant game. And if you can find the deluxe edition, it also comes with a bonus disc, which is a CD soundtrack. And price-wise, it's already starting to go up in price very, very quickly. A mint condition copy of this in America is about $85 at the moment. But in the UK, the PAL version is still relatively cheap for a mint condition copy. You can probably pick one up for between £21 and £25. But a used copy of the American one is already a lot of money. It's about $75. However, this is the kicker, and I'm sorry if you're in America because you're going to hate this, but at the moment, due to the fact that some game shops are just starting to get rid of their PS3 stock, you can pick up, if you can find it, and I found 2 copies of this, so it is still out there, and I've actually seen a couple of other copies, but I was stupid and didn't buy them, and then they got sold. But you can pick up a copy pre-owned of Under Defeat HD Deluxe Edition for £5! Yeah, that is insane! And the reason it's insane is because this is already a collectible game on the PS3, and it is going to go through the ceiling in price. I estimate within 10 years, a mint condition copy of Under Defeat HD Deluxe Edition in America is going to be worth at least $200. So it's going to double in price again. A mint condition of the PAL version is probably going to be worth about 150 quid. As for the used versions, I'd say for the American one, for the NTSC version, it's probably going to be certainly $100, $120. And for the UK PAL version, it's probably going to be at least 100 quid. Now bear in mind, you can pick this up for a £5 at the moment. So you're going to make some serious money out of this one if you can find it. So get down to your local game shop, see if you can. Right, that's all for me for the moment. I'm going to be back very soon with a lot more games that are going through the roof and 1 or 2 that are going through the floor. So, thank you for watching VG Trader. Join me again soon, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to subscribe. I've said that somewhere before, I can't remember where. But yeah, join me again soon. Cheers, bye.